Hey, welcome. I am super glad you're here. If you own a home and you're doing the normal stuff, so you're paying the mortgage, you're paying the bills, trying to be responsible, but it still feels like your money is gone way too fast, you're in the right place. What I want to do today is show you a clean way to look at your home equity and your monthly debts so that you can figure out whether there's a real opportunity to lower what's leaving your household every single month. No guessing, no panic moves, just a clear decision based on your actual numbers. A lot of homeowners are holding on to this belief that if your mortgage rate is low, you do not touch anything. End of story. Here's what I mean. Maybe you've actually pulled up the rates. You saw that the rates are higher than what you currently have, and you immediately just close out that tab. Or maybe you haven't even checked because you already know what you're going to see. But at the same time, you're making a mortgage payment plus a credit card minimums plus a car payment and maybe a personal loan or two. And it just keeps adding up. The checking account gets hit from five, six different directions. There's a reason that feels so heavy, and it's not because you're bad with money. So, by the end of this, you'll know exactly how to run the math on your full monthly picture and see whether equity can actually help lower your total monthly payments or whether you should honestly just leave it alone. Everybody starts with the mortgage. What's my rate? What's my payment? Should I refinance? And that sounds reasonable until you look at what's actually happening in real life. You can have a great mortgage rate and still be getting crushed by the rest of the debt, credit cards especially. So if you only focus on the mortgage number, you end up protecting one good number while the rest of your monthly obligations, they just keep growing and growing. And there's a different approach. Once you see it, it's hard to go back to the old way of thinking. My name is Jasmine Inkroat, and let me tell you why I am so particular about this topic. So, I'm a mortgage broker licensed in North Carolina, Indiana, and Virginia. And the reason I focus so much on education, especially for newer homeowners, is because I keep seeing the same situation over and over and over again. People have done the responsible thing. They bought a home, they're paying it, they're trying to build a great life. Fantastic. But they're also carrying high interest debt and a bunch of monthly payments. And when they go looking for help, they usually get one of two kinds of advice. Either somebody scares them with the never touch that rate without looking at the rest of the picture, or somebody tries to shove them into a product without testing whether the savings will be real for them. So, what I'm going to do today is walk you through the exact way to think about this. And it's not complicated. You just need to have the right order with the right questions. Here's the belief shift that makes the whole thing make sense. Your mortgage rate, it matters, right? I'm not saying that it doesn't, but it's not the only number that matters. What matters more day to day is how much money is leaving your household every month. If you're paying 20 to 30% on credit cards that can quietly cost you more than a higher mortgage rate ever would, the goal isn't to win a rate conversation. Honestly, the goal is to create breathing room in your actual budget. And that's what we need to be focusing on. To make this practical, I teach it as a simple method: EQUITY. Estimate your home value, quantify what you owe, understand your total monthly outflow, identify your options, test the savings, then your next move. What this does is keep you from jumping straight to, should I do a cash out refinance or should I get a HELOC, before you even know if you have usable equity or if the math is going to help you in any way. It also gives you permission to land on the do nothing option if that's right for you. That's part of the method too. So here's how we're going to walk through this. First, we're going to deal with the biggest objection. Rates are higher now, so this must be a terrible idea. That secret one. Then we'll handle the internal part where you're thinking, I don't even know where to start. I'm not organized. I don't want to get judged. That's secret number two. And then secret number three is the external stuff. So that's the market, the economy, timing, all of that fun stuff. I'll show you how to make a safe decision without needing the world to be perfect first, because let's be real, it's not going to be. Okay. So let's start with the one that I hear the most. My rate is too good to touch. I get it. And this belief makes total sense on the surface. If you got a low rate a few years ago, you probably feel protective of it. And you should be. Let's be real. It's a great asset. So when you hear current rates are higher, your brain does what it's supposed to do. It says, do not mess with this. The problem is, though, that belief is only looking at one line in your budget. You believe it because that's how the industry talks. You call somewhere, you get quoted a rate, maybe a monthly payment, and that is basically it. There's rarely a real conversation about your credit card rates, your personal loans, the car payment, and what all of that is doing to your cash flow. And yes, there are trade-offs. There can be closing costs. There's the idea of restarting the clock on a mortgage. But honestly, none of that is a reason to avoid just even looking. It's a reason to test out the savings before you make a decision at all to decide anything. So instead of asking, will my mortgage payment go up? I want you to ask, what's my total monthly outflow right now? With this, you can have a mortgage payment that you like, but you also still have another $1,000 or $2,000 a month going out the door in minimum monthly payments. If you change one payment but eliminate three or four others, that's where the breathing room really shows up for you. This is the part that honestly gets ignored. Credit card interest is brutal. Let's be honest. It's not just the balance, it's the rate as well. So even when you're doing the right thing and making payments, a big chunk of that payment is just interest. You're paying a lot of interest. And personal loans can be a bit better than those credit cards, but they can also still be expensive. So when you're comparing my current mortgage rate to today's mortgage rates, you're skipping the comparison that actually matters, and that is your mortgage rate versus your other debts rates. So backtrack a little bit. Quick reset on what equity even is. It's just the difference between what your home might sell for and what you still owe on your mortgage. And that number doesn't mean you should borrow it. It also doesn't mean you can borrow all of it. It just means that you might have some options available, and those options are powerful when you run the math first. Let's make this simple with a little example here. If a home is worth $325,000, and the mortgage balance on that is $240,000, the estimated equity is $85,000. Again, I want to reiterate, I'm not saying you should touch it. I'm not saying that you can access all of it. I'm just showing you how the equity number is calculated and the rest of the conversation, so that's not confusion or mysterious to you. And this is where secret one really lands. A higher rate isn't automatically good or bad. It just depends on what it does to your total monthly outflow. So you line it up side by side. What are you paying now? Total. And what would you pay under each option? If the savings are meaningful and the payment is comfortable, it can be a smart move, even if the mortgage rate is higher than what you currently have today. Now, you may be thinking, okay, but isn't this just moving debt from one place to another? And sometimes, yes, that's exactly why I am so strict about testing the savings and being honest about behavior risk. If you pay off cards and then the balances creep back up, now you've got the new loan payment and the cards again. And now your outflow is just hit again. That's a problem. So the goal isn't to shuffle debt and call it progress. The goal is a cleaner, safer monthly picture that you can actually maintain. So here's the truth I want you to take with you. The mortgage rate is a detail, okay? The cash flow is the outcome. If your monthly obligations drop in a way that gives you some breathing room and stability, that's what matters. And if the numbers don't work, you don't force it. You leave it alone. And that's also a win because you at least know. Okay. Even if you agree with the math, there's still the personal part. The part where you think, I can't even pull this together. Let's be real. A lot of people avoid this because it feels messy. You've got a couple credit cards, maybe a store card, maybe a personal loan, maybe a car loan, different due dates, different logins, different minimum payments. Okay, I get it. And when life is busy, the easiest thing to do is just keep paying what you're supposed to pay and not look at it too hard. And that's totally human, but it's also what keeps you stuck. And there's another layer here. Sometimes it's not the math, it's the feeling of, I should be past this by now, or I don't want to tell someone what's on these cards. So you end up putting it off. And it's not because you don't care, but it's because you don't want the shame conversation. I'm not interested in that conversation. I'm interested in getting you clarity and making sure you have that breathing room. Here's the good news. You don't need to show up with a color coded spreadsheet. You don't need to have everything memorized. To run the EQUITY method, you just need a snapshot. What's your mortgage balance? What's that monthly payment? And what are the other debts and those monthly payments? If you know rates, that's great. If you don't, we can still start because the first win is seeing the total monthly outflow number. And that's the number that's been hiding in plain sight. This is why I like a method. When you're overwhelmed, you don't need more information. You need an order. Estimate value first. Quantify what you owe. Understand the monthly outflow. And then, and only then, we talk about options. That sequence alone, it removes a lot of the stress because you're not trying to answer 5 questions at once. And I don't want that for you. So the truth here is pretty simple. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be honest with the numbers. Clarity is what creates the plan. Avoidance keeps you in the same cycle where every month is a surprise. And once you can see the total outflow, you can make decisions that actually move your needle. And that's what we want. Some people, they hesitate because they're afraid of the conclusion. And that conclusion may be nothing can help. But even that outcome is valuable because now you stop spinning, you stop wondering, you stop doom, and you stop scrolling options. If equity isn't usable or the payment would be too tight, then the right move is a debt payoff strategy that doesn't touch the mortgage. And that's still a plan, believe it or not. The worst spot to be in is not knowing, because then you just keep repeating the same month over and over again. Now, got that out of the way. Let's talk about the outside stuff, the rates, the market, timing, because a lot of homeowners are basically in a holding pattern right now. So let's get to it. I get it. If you heard the rates might come down later, waiting sounds smart, and maybe you do wait, that can be fine. The problem is that waiting isn't natural when you're carrying high interest debt. The interest doesn't pause, it continues to grow. The monthly payments don't pause, they continue to come. The stress doesn't pause, it continues to build. So the question becomes, what is waiting costing you each month? And is it worth that cost? Is it worth it? This is where I want you to be really practical. If you do nothing for the next 3 months, what happens? You keep making the same payments, you keep losing money to interest, you keep feeling like there's never enough left. Again, maybe that's the right choice, but it should be a choice you make with your eyes open, not just the default because you didn't want to look at the numbers. So here's the truth: you don't need perfect timing, you need a tested plan. That plan is built under today's reality, today's rates, today's balances, today's payments. And then you decide what's worth doing. Sometimes the plan is a conservative option that improves cash flow now. Sometimes it's leaving the mortgage alone and attacking the debt a different way. Either can be the right call as long as it's based on a real test. That's what we need to figure out. Another external fear is home values. If values drop, equity can change. I get it, that's real. But that's not the reason to keep guessing. It's a reason to use conservative estimates and make sure there's a safe margin. It's also why I don't like decisions that only work in a perfect scenario. We look at the numbers in a way that still makes sense if the world isn't ideal. The fear, this is the fear underneath everything. You don't want to make a move and realize 6 months later that you're stressed in an even different way. So we test it. We look at whether the payment is comfortable. We look at whether the savings are meaningful, not just a tiny difference that isn't worth the hassle. And we factor in how long you plan to stay in the home. A good plan should feel calmer, not tighter for you. And that's the goal. So, just to tie a bow on everything that we covered, secret one is a higher rate doesn't automatically mean it's a bad move. The real question is total monthly outflow. Secret two, you don't have to be organized or some organized finance person to get clarity. You just need a snapshot and a sequence. Secret three, waiting might be the right move, but it has a cost. So you want to know that cost and choose on purpose, not have it forced on you. Now, let me show you what this looks like in real life with the EQUITY method. Here's the full method again. I'm going to walk through it in plain language. So, E is estimate your home value. That's just to know what might be available. Q, we're going to quantify what you owe, the mortgage balance, and then the other debts, not just the mortgage. And then U, we're going to understand your total monthly outflow, not just what you owe, but what you also pay every month. And then I, we're going to identify your options. That could be a cash out refinance, a HELOC, a home equity loan, or it could be none of the above when we just figure another plan out. T, then we test the savings side by side. And based on that, we decide your next move. And that's it. It's simple and it protects you from guessing. Step one is value. A lot of people have a vague sense of what their home is worth, or they've seen online an estimate that changes every time that they refresh it. We just need a reasonable, conservative starting point, not a best case, not a worst case, just a number that we can use to evaluate options without getting surprised later. If the value number doesn't support the strategy we find that out early. Next, we'll quantify what you owe. And yes, Balances do matter, but the part that usually changes someone's perspective is the monthly payment stack. So when you line up the minimums, the loan payments, the car payment, and the mortgage, you can see why it feels like there's no room. This step is where the story becomes clear to you. It's not you're bad with money. It's you have too many expensive payments at the same time. We need to figure out what they are. This is the heart of the whole workshop. Total monthly outflow is what leaves your household every month for debt payments, mortgage plus everything else, not just your mortgage. When you see that total, you stop arguing with yourself about whether you're being dramatic. You stop thinking you just need more discipline. You can point to the number and say, this is why it feels tight. You see it. Being able to see it makes a difference. And once you know that, you can actually evaluate possible solutions. Now we talk options. A cash out refinance replaces your current mortgage with a new one and pulls cash out. A HELOC, home equity line of credit, is a line of credit secured by your home, and it can be a good fit for you if you don't want to reset the whole mortgage, but it depends on how you'll use it and what that payment will look like. A home equity loan is typically a separate loan with a fixed payment. And yes, do nothing. It is an option. Sometimes that's the best option. The goal is the right move for your situation, not just any move. This step is where we earn the decision. We don't assume it helps, we test it out. We compare your current monthly outflow to what it would look like under each option, right? And then we're looking for meaningful breathing room, not a tiny change that doesn't actually improve your life. We also check for comfort because a plan that looks good on paper, but also makes you feel squeezed is not really a win. And we want to stay away from that. It makes sense. When does it make sense to make a move? Usually that's when you have equity, you have high interest debt or stacked monthly obligations, and your income is stable enough that the new structure, it feels comfortable for you. It's also important that you're planning to stay in the home long enough for the strategy to matter. This is not about just refinancing because you can. It's about whether the math actually helps you. And that's the most important thing there. And here's the other side. If the savings are small, or the payment will make you nervous, or the costs outweigh the benefits, then you leave it alone. If you're planning to sell soon, same thing, leave it alone. And we also have to be honest about behavior risk. If paying off the cards would just lead to the balances coming back up, then consolidating could backfire on you. And I absolutely do not want that. The goal is a better picture and better position and not a different kind of stress. We're trying to get away from that. So you basically have two paths. One path, most people do. They keep juggling payments. They keep hoping that next month feels easier, and they keep guessing about whether equity could help. Path two is you run the numbers side by side and you make a clean decision. Use equity, don't use equity, choose a HELOC, don't choose a HELOC, refinance, choose a payoff plan. Whatever answer is for you, is for you. And you're not guessing anymore. If you want help getting clarity, here's what I recommend. My free equity reset review. This is where we take everything that we just covered and we apply it to your actual situation. We'll take a look at your estimated home value, your current mortgage balance, your estimated equity. Then we'll look at all your other debts and what they're costing you each month. And then we'll run a real savings analysis. It's not going to be vague. It's not going to be generic based on generic figures. It's going to be yours. The reason this is valuable is because you're not just getting information, you're getting a recommendation. You'll see a side-by-side comparison of your current monthly payments versus a possible new payment structure. We'll review the options: cash out refinance, HELOC, or just leaving it alone. And then I'll tell you clearly whether using equity makes sense for you or not. If the answer is no, you'll hear me say no. Point blank, period. If the answer is yes, we'll talk about what the safest version of yes looks like for you. If you want to figure out that clarity, scan my QR code and schedule your free equity reset review today. You'll pick a time that works best for you. We'll go through your estimated home value, your mortgage balance, your debts, and your monthly payments. And then I'll show you whether using your home equity can actually lower your total monthly debt payments, or whether you should just leave everything alone for now and figure out another way. Either way, you'll walk away knowing what makes sense instead of sitting there stressed out and just guessing.